Well, welcome everyone. I'm Laura Jackson. I'm the director of the Tallgrass Prairie Center here at University of Northern Iowa, and I'm also a biology professor. Welcome. This is the fifth Native Seed Stakeholders meeting that we've held here at UNI since March of 2020. And so glad to have you here. I'll just briefly tell you a little bit about the Tallgrass Prairie Center if you haven't been here before, and then I'll turn it over to Laura Walter, who will do everything else. So the Tallgrass Prairie Center was founded in 1999, and we're very privileged to have our founder here, Dr. Daryl Smith. The center began, hold up your hand again, there we go, Dr. Smith. The center really began in the early 1990s with the establishment of the Iowa Roadside Management Program and the Iowa Ecotype Project, which became our plant materials program. And our mission is to be able to restore natural ecosystems and help others to do that as well. So in the upper Midwest, we've built a native seed system that is actually the envy of the rest of the country. And if you're wondering who did that, just look around. It's this group and others. So it makes sense for the Tallgrass Prairie Center to be involved in this. It's really central to our mission, and we're honored to be a part of it. The center began, as I said, officially in 1999, 25 years ago, actually, with those two programs, Iowa Roadside Management and the Plant Materials Program. And since then, we've added a research program, research and restoration, and our Prairie on Farms program, working with farmers and landowners to help them with higher quality prairie restorations. And if you have time after the end of our session, which wraps up at 4:30, I'd be happy to give you a tour if you haven't been to the Tallgrass Prairie Center. Before I turn this over to Laura Walter, let me introduce the rest of our staff. Excuse me, Christine Nemec, if you could stand or wave your hand, there you go. Christine manages the Iowa Roadside Management Program and works with county roadside managers all over the state. Dr. Justin Meissen, where is he? Our restoration and research program, doing all kinds of research on prairie restoration, and you'll be hearing from him later today. Andy Olson, who's at the desk here, works with farmers, landowners, with the Prairie on Farms program. And then we have Mary Weld, who takes care of everything in the office and keeps us out of trouble and the university happy with us, which is very essential. And then let's see, where are Mallory and Andrea? Oh, and then Ann Phillips, our community engagement coordinator. Everything that looks well designed and beautiful and well organized. And then we have some students here. Josie Hutchings coming in here, works with Laura Walter in the greenhouse in the field. Mallory Sage is a AmeriCorps member who's stayed on for a second year and has helped us with myriad kinds of things. And then is Andrea here? I don't see Andrea, but she will be around maybe later in the day. So hopefully I got everybody. And with that, I'll turn it over to Laura Walter.
Welcome to the Laura and Laura Show. I promise it won't just be us. We've got lots of good speakers in store today. But first, I just wanted to direct the attention at all of y'all. We bring you together here to talk about native seed, and we all have an interest in getting more native vegetation out into the landscape and making that process of restoring that more effective and getting more of the functions of prairie back out into the landscape. So I think we're going to kind of do the wave here, but our own version of it. It's the prairie wave. And so anybody in here who grows native seed, whatever scale you grow it at, if you grow native seed, wave your hand high. Whoa. That's great. Anybody here who uses native seed, and you can wave again. If you also use native seed, raise that hand. People who manage plantings, you see what's going on here, right? Okay. If you help and instruct other people in making and managing those plantings, all right, lots of hands are up. If you are somebody who helps certify native seed as to its origin, yay, we've got representation from the Yellow Tag program at ICIA here again. Very happy for that. If you help development and implement standards for the use of native seed, all right. And if you do research using native seed, another small category, but a very important one. So anybody who didn't raise their hand, is there? Anybody? Oh man, I did a good job. Okay, all right. So today we're meeting again with similar objectives to past times. We are building and strengthening connections across the native seed supply chain and keeping communication channels open. We'll have some updates on developments in policy and research in some of the agencies that use native seed. And we also want to identify emerging issues and ways that we can work together on solving some of the problems that we see. So quick overview of the agenda. We're going to have presentations and discussion up until lunchtime. There will be a biology break in there. The restrooms are out this door and to the right. And then after lunch, we will have some presentations and discussion again in this room. Lunch is also in here. And then we'll have breakout discussions in some rooms that are down the hall and across the hall from us. And finally, we'll do a wrap-up session here shortly after 4 o'clock. If you have to leave a little bit early, we totally understand that. We know that some of you have driven quite a ways to get here today, so we respect that. And now, for the part that I really love talking about, this is the Plant Materials Program update. So I'll talk about some of the activities that we've been engaged in. The beautiful picture here is thanks to the Iowa Natural Heritage Foundation. I took the picture, but they allowed me to take part in a seed collecting event this last fall, and I was able to collect seed of a species I was very interested in. And when I was done, they said, yeah, you can keep that. You can use it in your program. So I'm very, very thankful for that and for the other partners that have helped me out. Also want to give a shout out to our funders. The Iowa Living Roadway Trust Fund is the funder of most of the activities that you'll see presented, and including this meeting. So round of applause, please, for LRTF. We're also grateful to the University of Northern Iowa for funding and facilities that we use. So TPC Plant Materials Program, if you're new to this group, we support a native seed supply for our region for roadsides and other restorations that is diverse, regionally appropriate, source identified, and affordable. So it's a big goal. We work towards that by producing source identified seed for the native seed industry, by doing things like this meeting where we're bringing people together for networking and communication. We also disseminate information that we learn from the process of growing our native seed. And we also love to promote appreciation of the tallgrass prairie ecosystem when we can. So a lot of the activity we have is managing a seed bank that's been developed over the past 30 plus years, and making sure that we have fresh seed available for native seed growers. This involves keeping tabs on our stock seed bank and refreshing it as necessary. And so a lot of our activity is growing out new seedlings, getting those in the ground, and taking our reserved first generation seed that was produced from remnant collections and using that then to produce a second generation of stock seed in our fields. That's what Josie and Mallory are doing in the picture. They're planting out showy goldenrod seedlings. And then by last fall, that's what they looked like. When we do this process, we're looking at regrowing species for which we have a low quantity or very little seed or no seed in storage. And that could be that we've just released all of that to growers. It could also be that we have declining seed viability in storage, and so we do seed testing of a set number of lots each year in order to keep tabs on what's available in that seed bank and is actually viable. And then there are just some species that are in high demand, like the blazing stars that you see in the picture. That's meadow blazing star, or Rocky Mountain blazing star, I think is the USDA name for that. It doesn't last terribly long in storage, and it also doesn't last terribly long in the field. So there's a need for refreshing those fields more often. We need to produce our seed more often too. A couple of years ago, I spoke to this group about a new way of defining our seed zones. You may be familiar with the kind of the old 3-zone system. I can provide more information about that if you're curious. I talked about this a couple years ago. But now, with the new species that we're collecting, we are utilizing an approach that aligns more closely with the generalized provisional seed transfer zones, quite a mouthful there, from the U.S. Forestry Service. So this is a nationwide map of seed transfer zones that are based on climatic variables. Neat thing is, living in the Midwest, our seed transfer zones are pretty much latitudinal bands that are based on minimum winter temperatures. So they look a lot like USDA hardiness zone maps. And one of the reasons that we looked at this is it helps simplify our process of generating and maintaining those ecotypes by making most of the state into 2 main zones, kind of north and south. Sorry, Les Hills folks, we've still kind of cut you off out there. And so there's a need for, maybe a focus regionally on that Les Hills region. But over the past couple years, I've been making collections mostly in the northern part of the state. And this map shows the 11 different remnant prairies. These are wet prairies, sedge meadows, fens, that kind of thing, all the way across the northern part of the state, from Steel Prairie over there in the west in Cherokee County over to Souls Prairie, a new Fayette County acquisition that's just south of Arlington. So we collected a seed from each of these prairies, cleaned that in-house, and then produced plants from that in the greenhouse last year, some of which flowered. So, and you can see that's a queen bumblebee. So this is late season nectar source that's specifically pollinated by bumblebees that can open those flowers. It's really neat to watch them do that. So they were in our field cross-pollinating among those different accessions, and then by the end of the year, we had a small amount of seed. We had about 5 ounces of seed that we collected off the plot last year. We're hoping to get more this year so that we can make that seed available to growers. In the process of doing that, we're also learning about the production methods, and I'll talk a little bit later about how we then disseminate that information as well. So when we are making decisions about collecting new species like that, we're thinking about several different criteria. The main thing is it's got to be naturally found in prairies. We do also include, some crossover into savanna species and those wet prairie species like the swamp lousewort you saw in the previous slide. They have to have a historic distribution here in Iowa. We preferentially choose species that have a wide distribution across the state, but we'll also look at ones that are regionally distributed and cross over into other states. The neat thing about those new zones is that they acknowledge that these climatic zones where those plants might be appropriate cross across political boundaries, including state lines. We also look for species that are not threatened and endangered, things that have persisted in this landscape even as it has changed around us and them. We would like to pick things that have particular functions that people are interested in, like being a great fall pollinator resource or filling an important niche that we find gaps in. We are also receptive to stakeholder interests. So if there are growers or roadside managers or people involved in NRCS programs who say, man, we really should have X species available, we listen and we'll add that to our list. We also are interested in things that are hard to find a source-identified material. And for that, we get feedback from people who are researchers or restoration practitioners who say, I just can't get a hold of this species except from Pennsylvania, and then we'll listen to that. We also love it if we can find information on whether or not the species establishes in plantings. And if it checks most of those boxes, we're ready to go get that thing. This is the kind of lengths that we will go to collect some of these species. You can see, okay, the student Alex was helping with the parking, but he's in here now. And he was helping me with some of these collecting trips last fall. He's got hip waders on a hill, right? Okay, so we had to wade the Winnebago River for about a quarter of a mile before we got to one of these sites where we were looking for a species called Bromus calmei. It was actually on the previous slide. This beautiful grass right here. That's a picture of it in Alameda County at that INHF site called Heritage Valley. But this was at Claybanks Forest State Preserve. And you can't get there from the road. There's private land on either side of this particular property, and you have to get there through the river because that's public. So we waded the river, and then we climbed the bluffs, and you could see kind of what the soils look like there. A little bit rough, and at the tops of the hills, there's a lot of shrub encroachment. So I was starting to give up hope when I heard Alex basically scream, I found it, it's the Bromus calmei. And you just love it when a student pronounces a scientific name properly, but no, never mind that. But then we found a couple of populations of it, we collected the seed and brought it in. And this is a lot of effort. Is this really worth it? I mean, is this really necessary? Why are we doing this? I mean, don't we know what works in CRP or roadside by now? I mean, we've been doing this for a few decades, right? I'd challenge you to think, yeah, we know some things that work. We know, we could probably, any one of us could sit here and we could list off the workhorse species, right? But do we know that's the best? Do we know that we can't get better at doing this? So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why we're here, is to ask tough questions like that. To think about where we need to apply our work and our effort. And I'd argue that we need to keep challenging ourselves to get better. And that's why we bring people like you together. We ask tough questions. We share information. We're people out there in the field working with plantings and doing research and growing seed and knowing what works in each of our little houses, but we bring them together and we can share information and make all of us better. This picture is that same Bromus calmei, which, I'm sorry, USDA folks, but I don't like y'all's naming system. The USDA plant's name for this is Arctic brome. I really like prairie brome, but never mind that. This isn't a prairie strip. It was seeded in 2016. It comes up, it stays there. I'm so grateful to Justin Meissen for taking me out to the site and showing this to me and really convincing me that this was a species that really belonged in our program. He was only able to get the seed for our plantings sourced from northwestern Minnesota. Now, in a couple years, hopefully, he'll be able to access seed that's derived from collections in across northern Iowa. So one thing that we all know is if you don't seed it, it won't come. Just to paraphrase that old movie about Iowa. So while we're working with new species, we're also we're trying out production methods. I'm bringing up swamp lousewort again because I'm super excited about it. It is a hemiparasitic species, so it's one of those that has a special function that we're excited about. And we tried it out in the field with 2 different sedge hosts. We grew these as plugs in the greenhouse with those hosts. And the short answer is that so far we're seeing that porcupine sedge has been a better host than Bebb sedge for our plugs and in the field. Now there's lots of reasons why that might be. It might be just the timing of how we started things in the greenhouse and that kind of thing. But so far that's what we're finding. And hopefully they all do great this summer. And then here's another species that we've been dinking around with. This was from seed that was originally collected from plants from a ditch next to our restoration site, the Irvin Prairie Project. And we had been trying to grow this from seed so we could get that population expanded at Irvine Prairie for a few years and just struggled with growing it. And, you look in the literature and you see, okay, mints, most of them don't need real long stratification, so I was throwing it in for 30 days, 60 days, something like that. And this past year, I thought, I've heard some stuff about outdoor stratification and those fluctuating winter temperatures, and maybe that's what's really important in this species. So if you look at that flat on the left, that is a full flat, that's 73 cells. It was originally grown from 100 seeds in a germination flat. So we got 73% germination in that one, which is pretty decent for this species. Best I've ever gotten. And over on the right is more typical of what we get from that species, which is 32%. I only got 32 of those cells filled. Which one? Okay, so both of them were stratified for 16 weeks. One of these flats came from seed that was stratified in the fridge. One of them came from seed that was stratified in the shed for 16 weeks. Which one do you think came from the shed? The good one or the bad one? It was a trick question. It blew my mind. It was the fridge. So by doing this, by thinking, okay, I'm going to put this all in all winter in the shed, then I better have a treatment that's all winter in the fridge. By luck, we discovered a way to at least germinate this particular batch of Stachys effectively. Now we're trying it with several accessions, and we hope to have that out in the field this year. Fingers crossed. Okay, so here's some new species, including that Stachys, the hairy hedge nettle that we're starting this year in the greenhouse. And that photo was taken just yesterday in the greenhouse. That is Bromus kelmii. That's that species that Alex waded and climbed to get growing in our greenhouse now. And then a whole bunch of other things. Hopefully we get most of them to grow. We're excited about the yellow loosestrifes. Not to be confused with purple loosestrife. We're going to try again with Pedicularis canadensis, and I have news. We have like 3 seedlings up in the greenhouse so far with our first stratification treatment, and then a couple of mints between the Stachys and the Teucrium. Oh, and Juncus dudleyi, Dudley's rush, a little rush. Okay, we're hoping to do some more collections this year. And we're looking into more spring forbs. I really want to get more collections of prairie groundsel or Pachyra platensis and some of the pussy toes or Antonaria species, and I want more Pedicularis canadensis. Really grateful for seed sharing, by the way. Bill Johnson from the Prairie Resource Center from the DNR shared Pedicularis accessions with us, and we trade seed back and forth. We're also grateful for another partner who walked into the room recently. The USDA Plant Introduction Station shares seed with us, and we share information about collection sites and the like. We also get permission from the DNR, the INHF, the Nature Conservancy, county conservation boards, and private individuals to go collect seed on their land. So we're really grateful to have access to that genetic material for the program. The little star by these things indicates short species that I think would be helpful for solar plantings, and we're going to have a speaker today about solar. So we're also looking into more cool season grasses. I think tapered rosette grass is one that has potential. It's a little bit more disturbance tolerant than a lot of these rosette grasses are. And I've got a little trial plot out in the field that we started last fall that I'm hoping to try out some production methods and harvest methods on. We're also going to go after Euphorbia correlata, or flowering spurge, this year. I don't know why we haven't done that one in the past, but there was some interest in that, and I'd like to go for it. Prunella vulgaris, the native variety, is one that I'd like to get, because that I think also has solar potential. And then the one on the right, Silene stellata, is just one that I see in a lot of mesic prairies. Haven't seen it in a lot of mixes. I know it comes up from seed, at least in the greenhouse, so I'm interested in trying to go after that one. But the really exciting news that I have right now for the work we've been doing over this winter, and actually started a couple years ago gathering information and kind of setting up a system for doing this, is to update our native seed production manual. The first version was put together in 2007 with a collaboration between the TPC, the Living Rotary Trust Fund, and the NRCS. It had 35 species guides in it. Our new edition is going to be coming out on the Tallgrass Prairie Center website when we roll out the new website. Hopefully March 31st this year, we're getting the pieces put together. So the new manual will be an ebook edition, but we'll also have printed forms that you can put together and create your own binder that has just the information that you need in it. We'll have new species, new functional groups, and updated production methods. So I think, let's see if this works, but I should be able to give you a sneak preview, hopefully. If not, we can talk about it here. I should have tested this beforehand. I tested it on my computer and it worked, but not on this one. In any case, we will just slide that off here. So you'll see that on the ebook version, there will be a table of contents on the left. We'll have the general information chapters with production methods. Aha, here we go, it's working. So we have the general information for propagation and harvesting live already. Seed processing and seed source and quality will be coming later this year. And then we have some species production guides. And I think we're gonna click on the woody species. And I'm feeling like Spirea alba is a good one to start with. And here's what the production guides look like in the web-based version. You'll see there's a printable PDF. We have some examples of those PDFs here today that we can hand out later on so you can look at them and give us feedback on those. But a couple of things you'll be able to see in here is different characteristics of the plants, including the seed characteristics and typical seed tests based on either our own production or our own seed purchases. You'll see range maps from the BONAP site used with permission. And information on seed production, including graphs that are based on our own production plots at the TPC and our experience in that. So we are excited about this. We hope that you enjoy it, and we appreciate any feedback that you will give us on this, as well as information that you can share. So if you're somebody who has produced some of the species that we have on the list, and you have information that we don't have, we'd love to share that information with everyone. So I know sometimes there's some closely held secrets in the native seed production industry, but if you do have information you'd like to share, we are all ears. And with that, I am, I believe, done. I had a final slide. Oh, here we go. I have a final slide that has, whoops, it just opened the thing again. I am inept at this. Okay, I'll get it right. We will click to the next slide, and we've got the strawberries in the field. So hopefully we pick strawberries this year. I was gonna have a cheesy metaphor about all the interconnections between the little plants there, but it didn't quite work out, so I just told you that I had one. Okay, anyway, really interested in your thoughts over the course of today. I'm badly managing this thing already. I didn't leave any time for questions or comments, but I'll be around all day, and hopefully we can connect over lunch and in breaks, and appreciate your attention. And so thanks.